Hello MotoGP fans, welcome back to ZNGP Today. Marc Marquez's hopes of a strong finish at the Indonesian MotoGP were dashed after a technical issue forced him to retire. Before that, the 8-time world champion was involved in an intense duel with Fabio Di Giannantonio, a battle Marquez believes was unnecessarily intense on the Italian's part. The Indonesian Grand Prix proved to be a pivotal moment in the 2024 MotoGP World Championship as Jorge Martín secured victory, while title contenders Marc Marquez and Enea Bastianini ended the weekend without points. MotoGP legend Dani Pedrosa has weighed in on the situation, analyzing the performances and the impact this race could have on the championship. Let's take a closer look at Pedrosa's insights and what this means for Marquez and Bastianini. KTM rider Jack Miller has publicly apologized after a dramatic first-lap crash at the Indonesian MotoGP in Mandalika took down not only himself but also Alex Espargaro, Alex Marquez, and Luca Marini. Despite the severity of the incident, Miller was not penalized by the stewards panel, and he has taken full responsibility for the mistake. Let's dive into what led to this unfortunate accident, and hear what Miller had to say in his own defense. Don't forget to click subscribe button and the bell icon for MotoGP news update. Marc Marquez, who had realistic hopes of fighting for a podium, or at least a top 5 finish, saw his race end prematurely when his bike caught fire. The technical issue with his Desmosetsai GP23 led to a dramatic exit from the race, leaving him disappointed but philosophical about the setback. "We were very unlucky, but Ducati, Gresini, and I win together and lose together. Today we had a problem, but I felt good throughout the weekend, and that's the most important thing." Quote from Marquez. Before the fire incident, Marquez had been battling within the chasing group behind leaders Jorge Martín and Pedro Acosta. He had initially engaged with Pecco Bagnaia, before his race was further complicated by a duel with Di Giannantonio. Marquez and Fabio Di Giannantonio were locked in a tense battle during the race. Marquez, however, felt that the Italian rider was being overly aggressive in their exchanges. "We started to have a fight with Di Gia, and he was exaggerating a little. He fell because he was on the soft rear tire, and I was pushing hard at the beginning, braking late. Once he fell, I started to get into my rhythm, going faster and faster, but we were unlucky." Interestingly, Di Giannantonio didn't ultimately opt for the soft rear tire, despite MotoGP Live timing initially indicating so. A last-minute decision saw him switch to a medium rear, while keeping a soft front. Marquez later detailed the fire that forced his retirement and expressed frustration over the inadequate fire safety measures at Mandalika. "There was a big noise at the rear and the engine stopped, but when I saw the white smoke, I immediately checked for fire. It's a shame because the fire extinguishers they have here are not the right ones, so the bike was completely damaged. It's a huge cost for a private team like ours." Despite this setback, Marquez is already focused on improving for the remainder of the season, specifically in qualifying. "I'm sad, but my goals for 2024 have already been met. Now I'm just setting goals for each race, focusing on improving in the time trials. My next goal is to be on the front 2 rows in qualifying," Marquez concluded. Marc Marquez's Indonesian GP may have ended in disappointment, but the Spanish rider remains optimistic as he sets his sights on Motegi and beyond. With personal objectives now at the forefront, Marquez is determined to find consistency and fine-tune his qualifying performances as the season draws to a close. Pecco Bagnaia, the reigning world champion, had a shaky start to the Indonesian GP, but he managed to recover and finish in 3rd place. Dani Pedrosa, speaking on DAZN, played down concerns over Bagnaia's starting struggles, pointing out that it's not unusual to have a few bad starts in a season. "There are a lot of starts a year, so failing only 5 is not such a bad thing. He didn't gain as many positions as expected, but finishing 4th at the first corner was still good." Quote from Pedrosa. Ahead of Bagnaia was Pedro Acosta, the rookie sensation, who received a mapping 2 instruction during the race. Pedrosa speculated that this was likely to help manage tire degradation. "I suppose it's to manage the rear tire, if it's starting to slide too much. But Acosta was riding well, and when I saw the mapping 2 I thought don't touch anything, just keep going until the end," Pedrosa told by Motosan. Bagnaia overtook Franco Morbidelli during the race, but Pedrosa felt this was more due to a mistake from Morbidelli than an aggressive move by Bagnaia. Morbidelli went too wide coming out of the previous corner, almost hitting the green. He had to cut the throttle, and Pecco used the whole shot device to get the ideal line. It was more of a mistake by Morbidelli than a good attack by Bagnaia. Meanwhile, Jorge Martín's win in Mandalika was a testament to his ability to bounce back from mistakes. After a fall in Saturday's practice, Martín fought hard to take victory, overcoming the psychological barriers from past errors. He had to fight against the ghosts of last year and yesterday, but he resolved it in the best way possible. Saturday was a strong day for Marc Marquez, who finished third in qualifying, but his luck turned on race day as a mechanical failure forced him to retire while running in 7th place. Pedrosa praised Marquez for his honesty after Saturday's result, where the Spaniard admitted he was aiming for a top 7 finish. He was in 7th position, suffering behind the Ducati train, unable to overtake or pick up the pace. Then came the mechanical failure. Marquez's retirement, coupled with a 0-point result for Bastianini, has left both riders with an uphill battle for the championship. Pedrosa acknowledged that their chances of competing for the title have drastically diminished after the weekend. With the points difference Marquez and Bastianini already had, and now both scoring 0, it's very difficult for either of them to have a chance in this World Championship, Pedrosa concluded. With just a few rounds remaining, the 2024 MotoGP World Championship is shaping up to be a 2-horse race between Jorge Martín and Pecco Bagnaia, while Marc Marquez and Enea Bastianini face an increasingly difficult challenge to close the gap. As always, anything can happen in MotoGP, but time is running out for the two former champions to mount a comeback. The incident occurred early in the race at turn 3, where Miller lost control of his KTM and caused a chain reaction that took down 3 other riders. The Australian explained that he had made a strong start, pushing hard to make up positions after starting from 16th on the grid. However, while entering the corner, Miller found himself too close to Luca Marini and had to brake to avoid contact. As soon as he applied the front brake, he lost control of the bike. "I made a good start. I got between the gaps in turn 1 and 2. I was side by side with Alex Espargaro and tried to keep the speed, looking for the inside at turn 3. As soon as I touched the front brake, I went down. That's it." Quote from Miller. The crash ended the races of Espargaro, Marquez, and Marini, with Marini suffering his first fall of the season. Following the race, Miller was quick to acknowledge his mistake and apologize to the riders involved. He expressed regret over the incident but explained that it was an unintentional racing maneuver. "I want to apologize to the guys, it wasn't my intention. It was a race maneuver. I was trying to manage 1,000 things at the same time. I admit that I was wrong, I made a mistake." Quote from Miller. Miller clarified that he wasn't trying to pull off an aggressive or exaggerated move, and his crash was the result of trying to avoid contact with the other riders. "The reason I fell was to avoid hitting someone. I don't feel like I did anything exaggerated." Despite the crash taking out multiple riders, the stewards panel ruled that there was no action to take. Following the incident, Miller agreed with the decision and believed it was a fair call. At the end of the race, they said no action to take. "I agree it was fair," Miller told by Crash. Miller also reflected on the chaos of starting from the back of the grid in MotoGP, explaining how difficult it is to make progress in the early laps. Starting from 16th place put him in a hectic battle where quick decisions had to be made to gain positions before the field settled into a rhythm. "That's what happens when you start from 16th. It's chaos back there. In the first few laps, it's your only chance to get a decent pass. Once you get into a rhythm, it's very difficult to make a difference," Miller concluded. He highlighted how even top riders like Pecco Bagnaia, Franco Morbidelli, and Marco Bezzecchi struggled to make significant progress once they were stuck in a group. Jack Miller's crash in Indonesia was a tough break for the affected riders, but the Australian has owned up to his mistake and offered a sincere apology. As the championship heats up, all eyes will be on how Miller and the others bounce back from this unfortunate incident. Thanks for watching ZNGP Today, and this is your MotoGP news update. See you in the next video.